Good evening. Good evening. On behalf of the Socratic Club, I would like to welcome you all to our third event of the academic year. I would also like to ask you all to please respect our speakers and your fellow audience members by abstaining from conversation during the debate. There will be a question and answer period following the debate where we encourage you to come up and ask your questions. I would also like to thank the Intercollegiate Studies Institute for the continual generosity and support of our events. The Socratic Club was founded by C.S. Lewis in 1941 at Oxford University to explore the intersections of Christianity, contemporary society, and culture. We continue this tradition in honor of his commitment to the frank and open discussion of beliefs. Tonight's debate will investigate the institution of marriage and same-sex unions. The question of gay marriage is one of the most hotly debated moral and cultural issues of our time. We will be asking, should same-sex couples enjoy the same rights in marriage that heterosexual couples have? Is homosexual activity within a committed monogamous relationship truly marriage? Two nationally prominent speakers who have appeared in many debates across the country on the subject of gay marriage will present divergent point of views. Maggie Gallagher will argue that marriage between a woman and a man is the fundamental cross-cultural institution for bridging the male-female divide so that children have loving, committed mothers and fathers. John Corvino will argue that extending marriage to gay couples is good for those couples and good for society at large, because society has an interest in promoting stable partnerships for all its members, straight and gay alike. Our first speaker tonight is Maggie Gallagher. Maggie Gallagher is a writer and commentator who serves as president of the Institute of Marriage, or for Marriage, and Public Policy and the National Organization for Marriage. She's the author of 5 books, including The Abolition of Marriage, How We Destroy Lasting Love, and with Linda Waite, The Case for Marriage. She has written a syndicated column for Universal Press Syndicate since 1995. Please join me in welcoming Maggie Gallagher.
Thank you very much. I'm too short for this podium, so I'm going to speak on this side. It's an honor to be here talking about, and thank you to the Socratic Club for providing a forum for John Corvino and I. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be debating John Corvino, who's a distinguished philosopher and a wonderful human being. I'd like to start, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and what I think about marriage, but I'd like to start by asking where you are, okay? So I'm going to ask you for a show of hands, how many of you are inclined to favor same-sex marriage? How many are inclined to be opposed? How many people either don't know or think it's none of my business, okay? So how many people here are in favor of same-sex marriage? And how many people are opposed? And how many people don't know or say, none of my business? Okay, thank you. For me, let me tell you what I'm not going to be talking. I'm not going to be talking about the constitutional legal issues involved primarily. And what I'm trying to do for the majority of people here who favor same-sex marriage is to sketch out for you what is in the hearts and minds, certainly of myself, and I think of a large number of the people who have wrestled with this idea of same-sex marriage after 6 or 7 years of intense public debate. I really just don't think it's the right idea, okay? For me, this is primarily an issue about what you think about marriage. And I know that it is one of the reasons I'm happy to be debating John, is I know it's a great concern of his as well. I came into this debate after spending about 20 years in this whole other big, what used to be the hot button debate about our high rates of divorce and family fragmentation, so many children being raised without fathers, so many women parenting managing the unfair burdens of parenting alone. So many men, dehumanized by a culture that tells them that they're not really essential to this great project of raising the next generation. And for people like me, I think the hardest divide to cross, even to talk about, is that there isn't something outside of the permanent, enduring union of male and female that is marriage, okay? For people like me, there's not just the option of saying, well, we have this thing called marriage, let's let gay people join it, okay? Because the heart of what marriage is this union of opposites, okay? There's an old sense of the word to marry. It means, you still use it in cooking occasionally, right? You marry herbs, which is to marry different flavors into a harmonious whole. Where did this idea of marriage come from? And how is it that here in the 21st century, there are still people willing to stand up and defend it, okay? The place for me to begin is with the recognition that marriage is a virtually universal human social institution. It exists in virtually every known human society. There's literally one small tribe in Africa that the anthropologists quibble about, it's in China actually, about whether or not they have some form of marriage. And this marriage differs a great deal across all of these wildly different societies. But it has a certain basic shape and architecture. It's always a public union. It's not just a private and personal union. It's a sexual union. It's not some other kind of union. Between at least one man and one woman, because polygamy is frankly a common variant among small tribal societies in particular, in which the rights and responsibilities of man and the woman towards each other and towards any children of their union are publicly defined and supported. And that means we don't just leave it up to a bunch of adolescents in the middle of their erotic, romantic, psychological dramas to work out on their own what this whole big dimension of human experience means. Now, I have to say when I say this, I'm not saying that simply because this is what marriage has been cross-culturally through most places in human history that we can't change it because, we're Americans, we can do whatever we want. I'm pointing this out for a different reason. The place to, not the place to end, but at least the place to begin the debate is to ask yourself why. Okay, there aren't that many human universals. Why is it that over and over again in these diverse cultures, down there in the jungles of the Amazon basin and on the steppes of Asia and in the deserts of Africa, over and over again, human beings come up with something that is recognizably this marriage idea. And if you ask the question, which most people don't, the answer isn't that hard to find. Marriage as a universal human idea has deep roots in three persistent truths about human beings everywhere. The first is that the overwhelming majority of us are powerfully attracted, and not by reason, to an act that makes new human life. Sex between men and women makes babies. The second truth is that society needs babies. Reproduction is optional for the individual. Not everybody has to do it. But only those human civilizations and cultures that successfully grapple and manage the procreative implications of male-female sexual attraction survive to become one of the human possibilities. The third idea on which marriage is based is that children need a father as well as a mother. Okay? Now, children don't need a mother and father the way they need oxygen and food. We know that. I myself was an unwed mother for 10 years. I'm perfectly aware that people in a variety of family forms can give their children love and care and raise good people. But there's been this persistent idea that it's important to connect both of the creators and the children together into the same family, right? And it is fatherhood and not motherhood that is most at stake in this marriage debate. I say that not because I think fathers and mothers are more important than each other. We had another whole big debate through my lifetime on gender roles and the meaning of maleness and female. Take all that and put it to the side. Again, not because it's not an important debate, but because the truth I'm trying to point to is even more basic. Put it this way. When a baby is born, there is bound to be a mother somewhere close by, right? I mean, if we want fathers to be there for their children and for the mothers of their children, biology alone will not take us very far. We need a cultural mechanism for attaching fathers to the mother-child bond, and for persuading the vast majority of young people who are attracted to the opposite sex that they need to make substantial sacrifices in order to try to give this good to their children. Because we now know what maybe should have been obvious, but we now know from 50 years of experimentation that the unregulated kind of fallback position of male-female sexuality is lots of children produced across multiple families with thinner and thinner relationships between the parents and between children and their fathers in particular. So what does this all have to do with gay marriage? I mean, let's put it this way. This is the architecture. This is the big human idea. You need something called marriage, because and what marriage is has these deep roots in the realities of what is distinctive about opposite-sex unions, both for good and for ill. You know, sex between men and women makes babies. You need babies. Babies need a mother and father. That's the heart of the marriage idea. It's the idea about marriage which is the most in crisis in our culture. Okay? We don't have a crisis about people who are romantically, madly in love having a big fancy wedding, right, to express that love in public. That's not the crisis. We know we can do that, right? The problem we're facing, and we've been facing it way before gay marriage, it's not caused by gay people, it's not caused by gay marriage, but the crisis that is precisely about how committed we are as a culture to this idea. Adults need to make really powerful sacrifices. Marriage really matters because children need a mother and father, and adults have an obligation to make at least, you know, you and I may disagree about how much, but some level of sacrifice and discipline in order to achieve this great good for themselves, for their children. So, why can't we just add gay marriage onto this idea, right? We can have marriage, we can have gay marriage, they'll go. Here's the problem that I see unfolding, and for me it's not a theoretical problem. At the level of culture, I see it in my work every day. I mean, I got involved in the gay marriage debate because when the idea burst into my head around 2000,